When we look at the world around us, we see artificial intelligences in the plural all around us all the time. And as I've been working as a voice artist for over 4 decades, I'm sorry to have to tell you that I've been probably irritating many of you with stuff like valitsemaanne numeroon juuri nyt saadaan yhteyttä. Olkaa hyvä, tarkistakaa numero. The number you have dialed cannot be reached. Please check the number. Or if you try to work or rest, I might have been irritating you with stuff like Pasila, Tikkurila, Tampere, junassa on diskovaunu. Have a pleasant journey. Or something to that effect. Right now, I'm an entrepreneur. Uh, we are doing our utmost to really get to the bottom of how voices can be utilized in a world of AI. And I also work as a personal brainer. Now, to the great horror of my student friends here at the Department of Computer Science, in the early 80s, I became much more something of a humanist. So I wanted to be on the side of humans, not be just developing the human computer interaction and AI systems to make computers and Skynet powerful, but actually be on the side of humans. Now, Charlie Chaplin had a great foresight almost 100 years ago already. How many of you have seen this film? If you have not, about two-thirds of you, the rest of you, and those of you who have seen it, rewatch it. It really clearly demonstrates what happens if a human being becomes part of a machinery, literally as he's demonstrating here, part of the machinery in the cogwheels. And there are lots of other examples throughout the film whereby he's subjected to decisions and systemic processes where his free will and interests are really set aside and he's just part of a machinery. Now, this to some degree actually happened in 2008 with the big crash. People wanted and needed to do millisecond, microsecond, nanosecond decisions, purchasing and selling commodities, stocks, etc. So they outsourced their decision making to machines, to algorithms, whom they deemed to be smarter and above all, faster, tireless. And that was a major part of what happened. Now, this was highly influential to me. It's been published in the United States in the late 60s. I read it in Finland in the 70s, and it's been reprinted since. It was influential not only on me, The Matrix, subsequent Wall-E movie, etc. Many have taken, as you can see from the front cover of the #1 issue from 1966. There are details here which have been copied. This was all about human beings surrendering not only their will and willpower and thinking to serve the machines, if you will, but also then to become physically weak. And as you can see, he is the person who has everything it takes to actually help the humans. My first hero ever. And this has stuck with me over the decades. And when I saw Wall-E by Pixar, I immediately recognized this because in Magnus Robot Fighter, this exact same theme and similar imagery was being used 5 decades before this. So the question is, now that we are truly at a watershed moment, for each one of us personally, are we prepared? Are we willing and able to develop ourselves? Not just be satisfied with the new wheelchairs and crutches in the form of artificial intelligences that make life easier for us. It's beautiful, and that's how they're being sold. Now, the YouTube algorithm, of course, the TikTok algorithm, above all, Facebook algorithms and everything, they feed us. When they copy the patterns in your brain through your clicks, your mind is increasingly copied into the machine and it can serve you stuff exactly like this. This is actually what it looks like on any subway, train, bus, or bus stop, or any station This is slightly exaggerated, but this is very close to what it looks like in Finland and all over the world right now. So this is not anymore science fiction. This is happening right now. Now, for me personally, this is my fifth wave. It all began actually in 1984, the year of George Orwell. I was an exchange student at Hamburg Area High School in Pennsylvania, and I learned to use microcomputers, or home computers as they were called, to emphasize their home computers suddenly, which was unheard of. And I started immediately because we teens, knew better than any adults what it's all about. So I became a teacher, an instructor as a teenager already. And suddenly I realized that I love this job, not because of all the nerdy bits and processes and kilobytes and stuff like that, but actually when I saw people learning, understanding how they could positively utilize these new tools effectively, efficiently to their benefit, but also avoid pitfalls. So the role of these devices became the core of what I was thinking about. And I became a humanist, I have to confess. Sorry, all my friends who studied and still study computer science. And the relationship with these machines became the core of what I studied and went into and also then developed. So I've been involved in the adoption actively in the adoption and utilization of these new tools, these new waves of technology. Now, if you look at the last one where we are now, AI, clearly it's been expanding, as we know, into more sectors in the world and also on multiple levels in society, faster than any one of these. In some months, and then if you look at like 2 years back, the adoption rates have been crazy. And they are now replacing our thinking. We're outsourcing our thinking. So there are opportunities and possibilities, but clearly dangers as well, of course. So the role or relationship that you have with these tools is of paramount importance. We need to be really clear about what they are to us. You need to know what is an AI tool to you, just like TikTok or YouTube. You cannot be blind about that. You need to really clearly be able to formulate. Anytime someone asks you, what is it to you? If you're unable to answer, that is the danger. So, every one of the last technologies, especially AI that I was just mentioning, initially is sort of like a tool to us or slave. It just waits there and then it does our bidding, whatever we want to. Frankly, for me, it's been for a long time. I've been using ChatGPT for over 3 years, thanks to academic connections via Aalto. And it early on became more than a slave, very early on an assistant. Above all, a sparring partner in work, in academia, personal life, etc. And there have been days when it's been a colleague. And I confess this. And I'm very clear and explicit when I experience that some afternoon. Yeah, you're now my colleague. I become as explicit as possible about that. Not to fool myself and to remain in control. Now, they can be bosses, and they are. There are an increasing number of human beings in Finland and other countries who just ask stuff without thinking about what we're discussing now, and they get advice, they get information, and then they act upon that because they're busy. Just like 2008, not million nanoseconds, but you're in a hurry, so you take it, use it, and deliver it to your client or your boss, and you take it as a given because you don't have time to think. You yourself don't have the time to think. And that's, of course, where we enter the really dangerous area. So clearly, AI raises the bar for us humans. You need to know what you want to achieve and do in life. More than ever in human history, with the advent of AI, you need to know where you're going and what concrete steps you're taking to get there. Number two, you need to be able to express yourself increasingly clearly, not only to prompt replies from the computer. I've been many times a journalist on live TV and live radio broadcasts, so prompting for answers from guests is something people in my industry have been doing for ages. There's nothing new. You need to know how to ask, what to say. Now it's more important than ever. And finally, you need to understand how you're adding value. What are you bringing to the table? This particular dialogue, this process, or this company during some minutes, some years, constantly. To the point of the theme of today, I just switched now the headline, the heading. You need to reveal the hidden connections in your own mind. Be explicit, be clear. What is going on? What are your motives, your thinking, your goals? You need to be able to express those very clearly to yourself and to people around you, so that the connections between what you have been impressed upon and what you're expressing, your impressions and expressions, need to be coordinated. And this sounds almost like therapy. You need to have cohesion, congruence, not dissonance. Now with AI, we can't afford to do otherwise. And finally, you need to reveal and clearly see the connections between you and other people in society, within the company, within business. They can't be like, yeah, I do this and it's whatever, and then something happens in my career. No, 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 no. The less you know what's going on in your mind, the less you're able to express it, the less you understand what your position is, what's happening around you, the more you'll be part of the machinery. And that's the danger we're in now. Not with mobile phones so much, with YouTube, TikTok, etc. Very much with AI, much, much more so. Actually, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or if you work for a company, it's important that you think like an entrepreneur. Whom are you serving or supporting or helping? In other words, who has some kind of problem or issue that you're helping right now, during these minutes, or during this particular year? And what is that need or challenge? That's the core of a business idea. There is only one useful definition for a business idea for a startup, and this is it. Preferably then, of course, you need to be able to do it repeatedly, sustainably for a long time. Only then do you have a good business, not just for a moment to blow all your money and then it's gone. No. And the same is in the marathon of a human career. And finally, preferably scalably, so that there's volume. Now, the last one for an individual, regardless if you're working for someone in a corporation or if you're an entrepreneur, that's the hard part. But now, for the first time ever, 1 + 1 can be 3. I, as a sole entrepreneur, not quite 3, I'm 2 plus something, 2.2, 2.3, in my efficiency and effectiveness, my output and what I do per week. It matches a 2-person company, soon a 3-person company. If I'm an entrepreneur? Well, it's the same in a corporation. You might not necessarily lose your job to an AI, but you'll lose your job to a person who uses AI, and they do the work of 3 and get the salary of 1.9. Win, win, win. No, you lose. They do the work of 3, get paid 1.7, 1.8, whatever, which is still a lot less salaries than 3 in the company. So it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not. Now, information society traditionally means that we're developing hardware, software, and connections. We need, at this watershed moment in human history, develop this hardware, keep it fit, this software, these contents, this data, and these human connections. My mother is in hospital right now. She had a stroke last Saturday. She can't speak. She can't write. She just lays there. Connections in our daily lives are not necessarily as clearly valued as when you suddenly lose them. So, information society should mean we develop ourselves. There should be company investment, societal investment. You need to invest in your personal development more than ever. We live 100+ years. The world, when you were born and you will die, is very different. 2,000 years ago, the same donkeys, the same carts, the same very simple tools. Now, in our lifespan, we need to evolve. So there have been lots of discussions whether, for instance, creativity. This is how I see human development as a personal brainer. This is a very compact, useful, big picture. Creativity has been said, people are creative, so computers are not. That's not true. Computers are very creative and productive. It might be, without going into details in our short time here now, it's convergent creativity. Look it up if you're not familiar with that. Divergent creativity is maybe not the forte of AI quite yet. However, they are good at interaction, they are very eloquent, they speak well, and they understand in whatever language you speak. They have memory, they know everything, much more than you will ever be able to use your memory. They don't need to relax, they don't need motivation, they just work. And they're pretty focused. Now, the decision making, the red sector here is the crucial thing, the last bastion of humanity. That is my point here today. In other words, when we can become a part of a machinery, this is reality for a growing number of millions of people all over the world, sad to say, mostly lonely men, who get companionship and everything they need from artificial beings and machines. So the emotional arena is not outside this. To the contrary, that is the most important last battlefield or bastion, if you want to be positive about it. So what I'm saying here at the very end of my presentation is that you need to mind your core. There are many words here on the slide now demonstrating what I'm talking about. These are all interconnected, part of the package. What do you have there? How well do you know them? Do you cultivate them? And then based on them, the skills of being a decider, a chooser, a manager, a leader. You steer, you curate, you coordinate, you do this, you select instead of a computer. So even if it generates some materials for you, etc., you need to be in control. And that is the most important skill, not creativity. Dare to say, computers to some extent, they took that already. This is the core. You need to cultivate more than any others. Finally, especially now here at Aalto University, I'm studying and developing memetics. Not just those small, funny internet memes, but the self-replicating patterns that I'm seeing in the audience. Your gestures, your hairstyles, your clothing. You've spent time and effort to be today as you were yesterday, the day before, etc. So you repeat yourself like androids, like robots, like replicants in the room. You've been doing it for 17 minutes now. Thank you for the demo. So, when these machines gradually have self-replicating patterns, they will not sit idly and wait for you. They'll be doing stuff. You need to go interrupt them. And my final point is that that doesn't mean that we need to be more like machines. Like this image. I've switched to the last image, which is this. We need to be more human. We can complement each other. I don't want to merge with machines. I want to be more human than ever. Do you know what it means to be more human? What is your relationship with these algorithms, machines, services, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, AIs, tools that you use, etc.? Be really, really clear. Clarify, reveal the hidden connections in your mind between your input and output, as well as around you. Only then will you remain relevant, and as a human being in the long run, only then will you feel well and do well in a world full of AI. Thank you very much.